What's going on, y'all? Welcome back. I'm actually very excited this week because we have our very special guests that have been on before. This is Drew and Madison. This is my brother and sister-in-law. So today we are going to be talking a little bit just about, I don't know what the perfect wording is for it, but just suffering as Christians and when things don't go our way. And more than that, when true hurt happens, how do we handle that? I don't want to tell your guys' story, so I'm going to let you guys kind of talk, whichever one kind of wants to go first. The first thing I am instantly drawn to is Romans 8:28. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. Very popular verse, very popular passage, but obviously there's a lot in Romans 8, and I do love this, which comes after he talks about suffering in the present time not being worth comparing to what will be revealed to us in glory. So I just want you guys to kind of talk about that, tell your story, and then just give us some insight to how you guys are walking through this right now.
So about a month ago, actually it's not even a full month, which still feels kind of crazy to us. We found out we were pregnant, I guess not a month ago, but a little bit over a month ago. But then at our first doctor's appointment on August 26th, we did a sonogram, and there was no heartbeat on our baby. And so the doctor gave us three options, and to either have surgery right away, let it pass naturally, or wait a week and come back. And so we chose to wait a week. We wanted to see God move. And so we came home, and we were obviously very heartbroken because this was our first. And so it was just very unexpected. We came in really excited to get to see our baby, and then to get this heartbreaking news that there's no heartbeat. So we came home, and we just had Josh and Linnea. They came over right away, and they just sat with us all day long. And their parents, they sat with us all day long too, and just a lot of support and community came around us and just mourned with us. But so we waited a week. We shared it with as many people as we could, because we know that prayer is a powerful thing. And so we really wanted believers to pray with us and pray for a miracle. So we found out on a Monday. That Wednesday we went to church, and Drew asked and reached out to the pastor if he would anoint us and pray over us as they do in the Bible. And a lot of people from the church that we don't even know, I don't know their names, I couldn't even tell you their face, but they came and prayed over us and put hands on us, and we were anointed. And Drew and I we agreed, we both walked away from that night feeling a lot of peace. We didn't know which way that peace was going, but we did feel very comforted in that moment. And it was very sweet. Fast forward to the next week, we found out the following Thursday, we did another sonogram. We had a lot of our family waiting in the waiting room, and there was still no heartbeat. And so very, very fast, I had surgery the next morning. And so I healed from, my body is now healed from all of that. But it's been a very wild ride this past month, and just the ache. It's nobody talks about miscarriage very much. And it's hard. It's a very hard thing to share. It's a hard thing to talk about. But as for me on this side, it's hard to explain the ache and the desire and the love you have for something you've never seen or never held. But I had that. I have a lot of love for the baby that we lost. But through all of it, I've been very, just why God did you not save our baby? I've seen, I know God can do miracles. I've been reading in my Bible of all these things he's done for the Israelites, and just how he's came through in so many ways. And so but ours wasn't saved, so I just kept asking, like, why not us? Like, that doesn't seem fair. It's like, I wanted this so bad, God, and you know how much I wanted to be a mom. And so there was just one night I was really struggling. I was really mad, and I was just laying in bed, and I wasn't getting over it. And I feel like God just prompted me to get up out of bed, because I remember a sermon from Passion City that same day came out called Treasures in the Darkness, and I was like, okay, I feel like that's something I need to go listen to. So I got up around midnight and I watched it and I took notes, and some of the things that she said was just, so this woman has had incredible hurts as well. And so she's speaking from experience. But one of the things that I really liked, there are a few things. She said, can you see my suffering as a curse or as an inheritance of breathtaking value? And that just really hit me hard, because God built us for this moment. God knew what was going to happen. God was working before we found out we had a miscarriage. God's been working the whole time. And one of the things that she talked about is, like, when we go through pain and when we go through darkness, we ask a lot of what if. Like, what if something else happened? What if I had done something different? What if? And it was just very powerful, because we do ask those. And in the darkness and the hard times, we ask the what ifs. But we don't have to live in that what if, and we get to live in, like, what is God going to do? We get to change the what if to a what is. One of some of the what if questions she asked were, what if God spared me from a perfect life? What if God chose me for this life? And I just really leaned into a lot of that. Like, what if this is exactly the life God wanted me to live? What if this is it? And we can either choose to sit in our pain and our suffering, or we can choose to glorify God through all of it, which is what we're supposed to do. Jesus was the perfect example of living he was in sorrow, and he had pain, and all of the emotions that we feel here on earth, Jesus felt too. And those emotions have been a gift to me, even though sometimes they don't feel like a gift. But each emotion I feel points me back to God. And so I've been just really leaning into God in this season. But she read a verse from Isaiah 45:3. I will give you the treasures of darkness and the hoards in secret places, that you may know that it is I, the Lord, the God of Israel, who call you by your name. And so one of the things that she just talked about was, what if God's trying to wake me up? And I remember thinking to myself, God, before we had a miscarriage, God will do something to wake me up. I was doing, on the outside looking in, you would think I was doing the right things. I was reading my Bible. I was having spiritual talks, but my heart, there was a heart problem, and I was content with being complacent. I was content with not growing and not desiring God, because it looked like I was, and that's really all that mattered. So the last part of that verse is, the God of Israel will call you by your name. And that was through the darkness that he called the Israelites by name. So, what if God is using our baby, his name is Leon, to call me by name? Pain has a crazy way of waking you up. Suddenly I'm not asleep, I'm hurting, and the only way to not hurt is to be near the healer. So I feel like for me, through all of this, I've really just leaned into God, and not that it hasn't been easy or it hasn't been hard. There's definitely moments of sorrow, and there's moments of joy, and then it feels so weird to go from a day of joy to another day of sorrow, and it's feels like I'm doing it wrong, but there's no way to do this right. And so I'm still wading through the conflicting emotions, and I feel of joy and sorrow and fear and like what's next. But like through all of it, God has been really, really sweet to me and has really prepared my heart for a lot of things. And He's opened my eyes to so many things. And I honestly would not want to go back to the way I was before Leon to after. Because I would not be living the life God called me to live before Leon. And so I feel like that's part of mine.
Well, and one of the things I really got from that was when you're talking about where your heart was at. So I instantly get drawn to Psalm 37:4. Delight yourself in the Lord, and He'll give you the desires of your heart. And I think one of the things, obviously, with us having lost a nephew as well, we've been wrestling with, or I've been wrestling with, is, like surely the desire to see Leon healed is not against God. Like, and if the desire of my heart, and I do delight in the Lord, and so it's like if the desire of my heart was to see Leon healed, and surely there's nothing wrong with that, how is it that it still didn't happen? And obviously that's something we wrestle with. So I don't know, Drew, for you, I know Madison was able to share her heart a little bit, but for you, where do you feel like that falls for you? Hi, Sminky.
Well, it's funny because one of the things, funny enough, happened tonight actually during this. We went to church Wednesday night at our church, The Well. If any of you are in town and need a church, The Well's awesome. And the sermon he talked about, he showed a clip of The Chosen. And it was little James comes up to Jesus and he limps up to Jesus and he asks him, like, why will I not be healed? And the answer that Jesus gives him is, because I trust you. And he tells him, I could heal you, God could heal you, and you'd have a great story. But there have been many who have that story. But how many people do you really think that we trust enough to not heal and give them that story? And so, I've always heard the old quote of God gives the greatest battles to his strongest warriors. But that one just gave a different testimony. And so I believe a lot of it is, I don't believe God intended for this to be the way things went. But I believe that God, I don't know why yet. I don't know when it's going to come into play yet. But I believe because we've, as a family, especially our generation, we just haven't experienced much loss. I know that was the one part of my testimony that lacked carry to a lot of people who have experienced that hurt. And so I think for me, a lot of where it's grown me is it's built empathy into my heart that I did not have before.
Right.
It's built an understanding of what people go through and what that feeling of just when you feel like that pressure has crushed you.
Right.
And so I'll have a lot more empathy and sympathy for that feeling of just devastation. And so, I think that there's an element of, even when you seek the Lord and you pray for this, sometimes because we are not perfect, we don't see his true goal. And I believe that God tells us to ask for what we want. And I think that, but we had a discussion with Mom the other day about how, in the meantime, we also prayed his will be done.
Right. Regardless,
we did pray that Leon would be healed, but we prayed first and foremost that his will be done. And so our prayer was answered. Our want was not answered, but our prayer was answered. And so I think that's where I've come to a lot of those emotions, because I listened to a sermon in the in-between weeks by Louis Giglio about El Roy and the God who sees. And he talked about how when his dad passed away, when all these things happened, it wasn't until almost 20 years later that he had that moment of like, God has seen me through all of this. God has worked through all of this. And so I believe that this is one of those things that, if used, it gives our testimony a stronger backing, because how many people is God willing to trust to put through this, knowing that they'll say, my God is still good.
Right.
And so that comes to my verse that I have been praying. So John Piper has a sermon over loss and hurt and the meaningfulness and the importance of those things to us. And so one of the verses he quotes is 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verses 17 and 18, which says, for this light momentary affliction is preparing us for an eternal weight of glory beyond all comparison, as we look not to the things that are seen, but to the things that are unseen. For the things that are seen are transient, but the things that are unseen are eternal. And so he just talks very deeply about the idea of, don't look to what is seen. Don't look to what makes sense. Look to the unseen that is beyond our understanding. Trust through it. And it's one of my favorite lines I've ever heard is, every millisecond of your pain and suffering in the path of obedience is producing a peculiar type of glory that we will have when we get there. And I just think that there is an element of pain refines. There's a lot of talk about fire, because the day before we found out about Leon, I feel like God kind of gave me the answer that it was going to be a no. I kind of had that feeling. Same Wednesday night service, they preached about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And when they gave that sermon, one of the things they say is they tell him that our Lord will deliver us, but even if he does not, we will still praise his name and we will not bow to you. And for whatever reason, that phrasing stuck out to me that night. And I think that it was definitely God preparing my heart to say, even if not, I'm going to praise him through it. And so I think, and then it talks about the furnace and the fire, and the fire hurts, the pain refines, the pain, gold has to be refined through fire, it has to be melted and then reshaped and all these things. And so with what we've walked through, like Madison said, it's an up and down process. And so one day you feel great, everything's amazing, God feels right next to you. The next one, he feels like he's abandoned you again, and you have to just search to find him, and you have to search to just even have enough strength to open the word, because emotions will hit very heavily. And as someone who's not a crier, mine comes out in anger and aggression a lot of times, and I've just found myself on some days I'm just irritable, and I just want to fight someone, really, is the honest truth. But I've just found that those moments when I refuse to give in to those temptations have been the days that have grown me the most, have been the days that have held me together, because it's easy in those good days, but those hard days are the ones that, and it's grown us closer in our marriage. I mean, our marriage is at the best place it's ever been. Our fights are resolved so much more effectively than they were before. Not that it's a perfect situation, but we resolve things well. And so I believe there's a lot of opportunity to use this in ministry. I wish it could be a different route, but that line still just hits me. How many people do you believe I will trust to not get the healing, and yet still will praise my name? And so I was like, oh wow, that is exactly what we've been talking about this whole time, and what I've been feeling, and just to have it voiced in that way was amazing. But I do believe God uses it for good. I believe that I don't know exactly how he's going to use it yet. I have some ways that are going on.
I feel like we've already seen so many.
Exactly. I was like, I've definitely seen a lot of, obviously with Chris, one of our guys in our group, losing his mom and all that stuff. It's allowed me to have easier compassion for him, and being able to, it's really shifted my focus to helping him through that walk. So that's really opened my eyes to just the pain that he's feeling to some extent. And then
So I feel like we've seen like a million little miracles from this.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, your mom had a miscarriage as her very first. And that was 30 years ago. And her experience was much lonelier and isolated than mine was. And so she probably didn't know the reason for hers, but what if this was it? So I just thought, not the reason why she miscarried, but as a good thing that's came out of it. And that was 30 years ago. And the people I've gotten to share this with, I feel like it's created a closer bond for me. We don't know who's going to be saved through this testimony and just the way we have handled it. I feel like we have handled it with grace, and I feel like we've really leaned into the Lord and into each other, and that's the way handling hardships is supposed to be. Like when you go through dark times and you go through suffering, it's either going to make you or it's going to break you. And you can choose to be made new in the dark.
Well, I also think, I mean, obviously, like you said, there has been a lot. I mean, obviously, one of our friends has that moment of when he found out, it really pushed him to take his faith more serious. And so, if that alone was the purpose, that would be enough. And so, I that's one of those things, kind of like you were talking about, that one of the realizations I think I'm coming to is there's never just a reason. There's reasons. It's that idea of when God works it for your good, it's because he uses it for his mission. And so even if one of those things was the reason, even if one of them was it would be worth it. But yet God has moved in the hearts of people to be more committed to him, moved in all of our hearts. Obviously, I think we are more driven in his word than we've ever been as a family. It's brought us together as a family in a way that we weren't before. It's allowed me to feel more emotion and empathy for people. It's allowed Madison's faith to grow and her having to seek him more in depth. And so I think that when we go through loss, we always want that aha moment. And I just feel like sometimes maybe it's not an aha moment, and it's just the little things that he uses it to change lives with. And so I think that's what, and I think that's why the wording of working it all for the good is it's a constant working. He's always using it for the purpose of his people. It's not this one moment where he's like, all right, now I have completed this, because we aren't complete until we get to heaven.
Right.
And so I'm a big believer that just he will use that moment in our life until the day that we're with him. And then he can explain why. And there will be some that we see, some that we won't. I'm sure there's an impact on some that we don't even understand. Like I mean, I'm sure there's that level of it. It's brought a lot of my former friendships even closer than they were. So it's just been little blessings, but I do believe it's for our good.
Yeah. Well, and I think two of the things that immediately come to my mind are obviously the way we see it is just weird. It's very abnormal to look at a miscarriage the way we do as Christians. And I was hoping I could find it. I can't remember the exact address, but the verse that says like the ways of followers of Christ is weird to a non-believer. And like it makes no sense, because one of the things, like the first thing I think of is, we talk about, God didn't take Leon so this would happen, but the truth is I'm honored to be able to carry on Leon's legacy. Like I'm honored to be able to speak of Leon, and people are going to look at that and say, well, you're just trying to cope, like this is just a cop out. But it's like that realization of like you just don't understand until you can stand in a place of hardship, and it's like at some point it's not faking. And I think that's something I've enjoyed watching you guys, because we've seen the pain, but the biggest thing is we've seen the redemption out of the pain. And even though there's going to be more painful days, but I think it's a huge testament, because we're in a world that when we stand up and say, I lost my nephew, or for you guys, I lost my son, and yet God is still good, and God has a plan for it, and God woke me up from it, and they're going to say, well, you're just coping, you're just trying to find a way to cope. But the truth is that you just can't understand.
It's like I feel like this month I felt more genuine joy than I have my whole life, and I cannot fake that.
Right.
I don't feel like you can fake joy
Mm-hmm.
because that's a fruit that God gives you. God, joy is from God, and I can't fake
Right.
something given from God. And yeah, so I just, if you would have asked me a month ago, who do I say God is? I would have said Jesus Christ, because that's the basic answer. And that's what Peter says in the Bible, but his answer is not basic. His heart was seeking God, and him giving God the messiahship that Jesus was showing him. Jesus, who was showing him all of these miracles, and Peter said, "You are Jesus Christ. You are the Messiah." He gave him that messiahship. But if you would have asked me, I would have said Jesus Christ, because that's who I'm supposed to say he is. But this month I can say that he is a good father. He is a good father. And we actually sang it again 2 weeks ago, and that was the first time I actually yes, he is a good father. Like, God is so good, and I truly just, there have been so many little things. And so even the day before, or 2 days before, we went back to the doctor for the sonogram. So the night that we found out on August 26th, Josh prayed that I would be the first one to feel Leon's heartbeat. And we at the time wanted it to be in healing, but that night, our dog has a stuffed animal that has a heartbeat in it for when he was a puppy, and no longer works, but it was sitting next to me, so I was like, I kept feeling like this heartbeat in just my pelvic area down there. But I thought it was the dog, and so I felt it, and it wasn't, and so I was like, I don't know what that is, but I just kept feeling it, like just a bump, 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 like a heartbeat. We went to bed, and I couldn't sleep, and I kept feeling it. I was like, what is that? I was like, it's not Drew, but I was like, Lord, is that a heartbeat? And then it stopped. And it, just like that, it stopped. And I was like, oh my gosh. I just felt like a heartbeat. And so my heart went like, Lord has healed him. And truthfully, he has healed him. Leon is in heaven, and that he is pure and he's perfect in heaven, and he's redeemed in heaven. And he didn't have to live through the suffering and pain of earth. And honestly, that is a really good gift. But so, even though I did get to feel it, so Josh's prayer was answered. But that heartbeat I felt was so comforting and so peace-driven. That's a good father. No other kind of God is going to do that and care about that little heartbeat moment. And so I get to say that God is a good God, and he is a good father. The other day, I was having a really, really rough day, and I could not get myself out of it. I was praying, I was in my word, and my heart was so heavy. And I go into the kitchen, and there's a tiny little rainbow on our counter. And I've never seen a rainbow in my house before. There's just a tiny little rainbow. And so, I don't know. I can't say it enough how good God has been. And I'll keep saying it over and over again.
Fine, Nan, I think you had something you wanted to
Oh, no,
share
I
as
just
well.
had verses just in case you wanted to ask me questions.
Okay.
But I think John 14:27 says, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give to you. Not as the world gives do I give to you. Let not your hearts be troubled, neither let them be afraid." And so, I mean, I think with, like, you saying that God is a good father, like, the world's idea of peace is sometimes just numbing or coping or avoiding it.
Right.
But, like, God gave you peace in a heartbeat. God gave you peace in a rainbow. God, like, it's peace that the world cannot and would not ever be able to give you. And so,
Well, and I think it's very apparent to those around you, which I think is not that it's like the end all be all if people agree with you, but I think the truth is the only thing somebody could say about the way you guys are is either they have to be hiding something and faking this very, very well, or it has to be real. I was like, and I think that's what I love from seeing you guys, is just the fact that when it comes to your story, people will either have to absolutely realize the severity and how real it is, or they're gonna have to just call you flat out liars. Like, they have no other option. Like, there is no middle ground. There is no lukewarm. Like, it is a beautiful, either they can just flat out call you a liar just like they did Jesus, or they're gonna realize the Jesus that is being shown through you. And I think that's just really cool. And it's crazy because it's like, for me, you know, like with Lenan's family's history of having a lot of miscarriages, you know, for us, like, I'm like, when we have a kid, if something were to happen, like, it sounds terrible, but I was like, I know I'll be okay. I was like, because getting to watch and walk through this with you guys has made me realize the goodness of God through miscarriages, and it's very cool. Well, and not that I'm not outspoken against abortion already, but I mean, it's just like it's impacted me in so many different aspects. Like, it's made me feel bolder about protecting the lives of unborn children. You know, having your own nephew that you see as a little bean in a picture, and you're like, that's Leon. Like, that's Leon, and it's like, I am proud that Leon, not that he did it, but that we get to honor Christ through him. And I know he is too, because I know he's up there now, and I know he's in the cloud of witnesses watching us run our race, and I think that's beautiful. And I think he would be so proud to see who his parents are as far as the way you guys walk with Christ. And it's beautiful. And it's one of those things where it's like, when you think about the day when eternity comes, it's like that reuniting will be so beautiful. I don't have a lot else to say. You guys, it was awesome.
I think that one of the things I think we've learned a lot is when you go through these moments, it's not about being okay. I mean, I've told people, like, we're okay right now, but there are times we are not okay. And so another verse that came up tonight that just reminded me is, and it's going to be a few verses here, but it's 2 Corinthians 12, verses 7 through 10, which says, "So to keep me from becoming conceited because of the surpassing greatness of the revelations, a thorn has been given in the flesh, a messenger of Satan to harass me and keep me from being conceited. 3 times I pleaded with the Lord about this, that it should leave me. But he said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in your weakness. Therefore I will boast all the more gladly in my weakness, so that the power of God may rest upon me. For the sake of Christ then, I am content with weakness, insults, hardships, persecutions, and calamities. For when I am weak, then I am strong.'" And so I think that one of the biggest revelations through this whole thing is, like, we should be happy to not be okay. We should be happy in those moments and joyful in those moments that we are broken, because his grace is sufficient for those moments. And because as someone who's an emotional stuffer by nature, I wanted to just tell people, I'm okay. I'm okay.
Right.
But the thing I learned became very apparent that we're not supposed to be okay. We live in a broken world. We're not called to be okay on this earth. We're called to trust him and be weak and be reliant on him in everything. And so our joy doesn't mean that we're okay. We're not content here. This is not our home. I'm not okay if I'm not home. And so I think that's been a really big thing, is like, brokenness is where we're supposed to be, because brokenness carries us to Christ. On our own, we are broken. With Christ, we are made full. And so I think that's just been a big eye-opener to me of just, yeah, we looked okay from the outside, but anyone who asked me, I would tell them, like, yeah, we're feeling okay right now,
Right.
but yesterday was a hard day, and we really struggled. Yeah, I feel good right now, but 2 hours ago I was struggling. And it was this idea of stop. I think that so many people want to be okay because we're afraid of what not being okay means. We're afraid of thinking that that takes away from the power of God. But I've found that not being okay and still being able to say my God is good. I'm not okay, but my God is still good.
Yeah.
Carries so much more weight.
Right.
Because I'm not okay, but I am blessed. I'm not okay, but I am enough. Those things that God has revealed to me is just, it's been huge. And so I think that's been, especially with Madison, who's much more in touch with her emotions, she's just, I've seen it a lot through her. Like, she finds that joy even in the midst of tears. She finds that joy in the midst of sorrow. And it's convicted my heart to not being okay, but being reliant, and it's two different things.
Well, and even if like that verse, like God will give you the desires of our heart. One thing that Pam has been saying, like the desire of my heart should be Jesus only, and even though my humanly desire is to be a mom. Even if that desire is not, even if I don't ever have another baby, my desire is Jesus. And I am still blessed. Even though he may slay me, or though he may take away from me, or he may not give it to me, Jesus is still the desire of my heart. Yeah. And if I see it any other way, you're just, you will always feel let down when God does not let you down ever. God is always showing up. Yeah.
So good. Well, thank you guys for letting us last minute ask you to do a super deep conversation.
So do our bill.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Nope.
But it really is. It's just, it's beautiful, and I got a lot out of this, and so I hope those who listen do too. Just really awesome to hear you guys' story. Don't ever stop telling it. So
Don't stop asking.
okay. But I hope y'all got something out of this, and if you didn't,
Watch it again.
you need to go rethink what you do with your life, because it's just it's beautiful, and we need to be living more Christ-like lives that can embody bad times but a good God. And so with that, nothing else to say. If you guys have prayer requests, please let us know. I know it's a bit longer video, but it is well worth it. With that, our song of the week is going to be Though You Slay Me by Shane and Shane, with the excerpt of John Piper and the verse that Drew mentioned. It is phenomenal, and so has made this family cry a lot of tears, and hope it does for you as well. And so with that, that's all we got for you guys. We'll see you next week. Deuces.